Louis Vuitton is now the world's most valuable luxury fashion brand. Its current CEO, Bernard Arnault, is the second richest man alive, with a fortune of around $180 billion. Looking at the brand's current success, it's hard to believe it all began with a young boy who had no education, was homeless, and slept in the woods. This is a true rags to riches journey, but the story of Louis Vuitton also involves a hostile takeover, multiple legal battles, and plenty of controversy. Here's how a small family-run workshop turned into one of the most famous names in luxury fashion. Louis Vuitton was born in 1821 and grew up in a tiny village in France called Untold, far from any big city. His family lived without electricity or running water. His father, Xavier, worked as a farmer and miller, while his mother, Corinne, made hats to earn a little extra money. There's no proof that Louis ever went to school. The nearest one was 6 miles away, and he likely spent all day working on the farm to help his family survive. The Vuittons were very poor, and Louis's future didn't look very promising. Then things got worse. When Louis was 10, his mother died. His father remarried soon after, but his new stepmother was strict and harsh. They didn't get along at all, and Louis often fought with her. So at the age of 13, he made a bold decision. He ran away from home and set his sights on Paris. He left quietly in the middle of the night without saying goodbye. But Paris was 225 miles away, and Louis had no money or food. He walked along dirt roads, sleeping outdoors, and often going hungry. Along the way, he took small jobs in exchange for food or coins, but he still couldn't afford a place to stay, so he kept sleeping outside wherever he could. Through these little jobs, Louis learned valuable skills, working with wood, metal, fabric, and stone. These would come in handy later in life. But travel was slow. It took him 3 years to finally reach Paris. Once in the city, Louis got a job as an apprentice to a box maker. These workers made custom trunks and packed them for rich clients who were traveling. Louis spent years here, learning the trade and making connections with wealthy customers. Then in 1851, something big happened. The Empress of France noticed Louis's talent and made him her personal box maker. This was a huge deal. From a poor runaway to working with royalty, that alone was a major win. But Louis had bigger plans. At 33, he got married and used his savings to start his own workshop in Paris. He saw a problem with luggage of that time. Most boxes were made of leather with rounded tops to let rain slide off, but this made stacking them very difficult. Porters had to carry them one by one. Louis tried out new materials and found that canvas was lighter, tougher, and more water resistant. This allowed him to make flat-top trunks that could be stacked easily. They were compact and efficient. A game changer for travelers, Louis already had a good reputation and connections, so when he released his new trunks, they were a hit. He even made a product catalog so customers could browse items and order them straight to their homes. In just 2 years, his suitcases became a symbol of class and elegance. He was even getting international orders, including from royals in Egypt. In 1859, business was booming, and he opened a larger workshop with 20 workers. As train and boat travel became more common, more people needed luggage. The demand kept growing. It seemed Louis had made it, but life threw another curveball. In 1870, when Louis was 49, the Franco-Prussian War began. He had to flee and live in a crowded shelter. Food was scarce, and his life was in danger. When he returned in 1871, his shop had been looted and destroyed, but he didn't quit. He used his savings to rebuild and opened a new store in a richer part of Paris, near a railway station and a fancy hotel. This was the perfect location to attract wealthy travelers. By 1872, Louis had created a new look, a beige canvas with stripes. It became a hit. Even though others copied him, no one matched his quality. His brand kept growing until he passed away at age 70. His son Georges took over and expanded the brand internationally. In 1896, to stop copycats, Georgia introduced the now iconic LV monogram, his father's initials. He also invented a lock for trunks that couldn't be picked. By 1900, the company had 100 trained craftsmen. Louis Vuitton's reputation kept rising. In 1925, Coco Chanel asked for a custom handbag. It became the Alma bag and later led to the creation of more leather items like the Keepall and Speedy. When George died in 1936, his son Gaston took charge. But tough times returned with World War II. Contracts were canceled and Paris was again under attack. To keep the business alive, Gaston worked worked with the Nazis, something the company doesn't like to talk about today. A writer named Stephanie Bonvinci tried to look into this part of the company's history. The brand first claimed the records were lost in a fire, but she found other documents showing Louis Vuitton had a shop open during the Nazi rule, while other companies were forced to close. Still, the company argues that collaborating was the only way to survive. Even Coco Chanel did something similar to save her business. After Gaston died in 1970, his son-in-law Henry Racamier took over. Henry had strong business skills and turned Louis Vuitton from a family-run store into a global brand. He expanded into Japan and many other countries. Sales grew fast, from $20 million to $260 million in 6 years. In 1984, the company went public. By 1987, annual sales crossed $1 billion. Then, Henry merged Louis Vuitton with Moet Hennessy, creating LVMH, but soon, a man named Bernard Arnault came into the picture. Henry brought him in to help manage things, but Bernard secretly bought 43% of LVMH shares and took control. Henry sued him but lost in court. Feeling betrayed, he left the company. For the first time, the Vuitton family was no longer part of the brand. Sales dropped for a while, but Bernard brought Louis Vuitton back by working with famous designers like Vivienne Westwood. This refreshed the brand and made it cool again. Today, Bernard Arnault is the CEO of LVMH, and at one point was the richest man on earth. He's known as the Wolf in Cashmere for his sharp business style. LVMH now owns over 70 luxury brands. In 1997, Marc Jacobs became Louis Vuitton's creative director. He launched the brand's first clothing line and expanded into watches and accessories. Though he later left to start his own brand, his influence helped modernize Louis Vuitton. Louis Vuitton is still fighting counterfeiters, even suing Google once for fake ads, but they lost. Surprisingly, they once sued Supreme too, but later collaborated with them. Now, Supreme X55 items sell for thousands of dollars. Despite all the ups and downs, Louis Vuitton remains a global icon. The brand is now worth over $39 billion, with 400 plus stores worldwide. It all started with a poor teen sleeping in forests, and turned into a fashion empire. So what do you think? Is Louis Vuitton worth the high price tag, or is it all hype? Share your thoughts below and then click on the next video, the story of the orphan who built Rolex, to discover why Rolex watches are really so expensive.